Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to Lost in the Wasteland, my weekly interview show where I learn a little bit more about somebody else's perspective on movies. And joining me is Filmstagrammer Lexi Amoriello, who is from Movie Rex by Lex. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And also getting a chance to be on here with a fellow Jersey critic and film lover. So that's always a fun time as well. But yeah, so basically, we're going to go through my questions, which, the first one's everybody's favorite question to be put on the spot with for sure. But Lexi, what's your favorite film?
My favorite film of all time is Charlie Chaplin's 1936 film Modern Times.
Very nice. Uh, what stands out about that film for you?
I just I love the significance in like film history that was
Mm,
his first real attempt into sound because at that point
mm,
sound had already been a thing, and the way he transitioned that character from silent films to talkies for that one. And the commentary on industrialization is still so relevant today
mm,
and people losing their jobs and all that. And it resonated with me because I feel like I'm always in situations where things go wrong in the most ridiculous ways, but like it's so ridiculous that you can't help but laugh. So I saw a lot of myself in that movie.
awesome. It certainly is a lot of fun and also very relatable in that way. It's just like especially in like the workplace, just like all the shenanigans that happen and stuff like that. And yes, it is extremely relevant in 2025, where corporations are trying to figure out how can we get away with not giving people breaks? How can they eat and still continue to work? Or just the evolution of technology and how that's affecting people's jobs. It's a very interesting time. And I think it's an extremely relevant film for people to check out. And it is something that's really special where it's that evolution of Chaplin for sure. And it's definitely one of his best films. And it's a special time capsule of like, wow, almost 90 years later, this film is still uncomfortably relevant. And I think that's something special about movies for sure. Now, thinking about going way back for you, Lexi, what's your earliest memory of going to the movies?
I don't really have one, as sad
Okay.
as that sounds. Like, I know, I'm pretty sure the first movie I saw in a theater was The Lion King. I know I
Hmm.
saw Toy Story, Jurassic Park. I remember seeing The Little Mermaid in theaters, and I was like, wait, that movie came out before I was born.
Hmm.
But my mom confirmed that that actually did happen, and it turns out they put it back in theaters in like 1997 or
Hmm.
1998. So I didn't imagine that. I remember I remember when I saw Titanic in theaters, everyone's like, "Oh, blah blah blah, I'm gonna cry." So I just like was trying to make myself cry because I thought I was supposed to.
It's very interesting, especially talking to a lot of people, and a lot of the times it is like Disney making that big impact on especially people probably around our age in terms of like our childhood. And of course, Disney would throw out The Little Mermaid for probably its 10th anniversary to get more people to buy tickets and make money, because it's what Disney does. Kids nowadays are so lucky they could just hop on Disney Plus and watch it whenever the heck they want and not have to wait for it to come out of the vault that they had. And obviously Titanic was quite the experience. It's interesting because I didn't watch Titanic until I was an adult. As a 6 year old, that wasn't exactly what I was interested in watching. But it certainly was a phenomenon, and sounds like an interesting example of expectations being put on people. Just like, yep, you're gonna cry during this. I'm like, I don't really cry during movies, stuff like that. But now, I have a couple of like favorite related questions, but Lexi, do you have a particular favorite genre of movies?
That's a complicated question. When people
Okay.
ask, I usually say, well, usually they ask, "What kind of movies do you like?" And then I just say
Mm,
all of them, and then they don't believe me. if I have to specify a genre, I usually say drama because I feel like most movies can be considered drama to some extent, but that's such a boring answer. And then usually that leads to me discussing subgenres. And my favorite subgenre is actually erotic thrillers, which
Okay.
nobody sees coming because I don't know, if you look at my four favorites, you're like, those are not that genre at all.
Well, an erotic thriller can certainly be very engaging and put you on the edge of your seat and stuff like that. And especially during like 80s into 90s, there's certainly plenty of them that can really stand out. But I get your point. Like, I do have specific genres that I gravitate to, but like I'll watch anything. Like if it's a good movie, it doesn't really matter what genre it is, as long as it's accomplishing what it's going out there to do. And to be frank, there's drama in everything. If you didn't have drama in a film, then probably be a very boring movie. So or unless you're going like full blown just silly comedy where, there's enough jokes that you don't have to worry about this not having really any stakes or anything like that. But I can appreciate that for sure. Now, thinking about behind the camera, do you have any particular favorite filmmakers?
Well, now I feel like I'm going to repeat myself because my favorite filmmaker is Charlie Chaplin. Unless we're
Okay.
talking, I should have asked living or dead, because
Oh,
usually
it
I
doesn't matter.
have answers.
But
Although
no,
my answer for when it was living or dead, it used to be for living was David Lynch, and now I'm like, oh no, I got to come up with a new answer.
well, now that is a sad information on the spot. But Chaplin and Lynch obviously are both incredible filmmakers, and Chaplin really kind of set the standard for what film comedy was going to be. Obviously, he had some peers like Buster Keaton and Harold Lloyd, but like Chaplin was a genius in terms of what he was able to accomplish. And it's so interesting to think about like the man behind the tramp. Because like the tramp's such a silly, goofy character, but then there's somebody who is so intelligent and had so many amazing ideas behind the camera putting that together. And David Lynch is going to be one of the most idiosyncratic, unique, special filmmakers that's like there's never going to be another David Lynch. I'm pretty sure most people don't understand in the first place, but it's very interesting experience, even just experiencing his work. I know I'm in the middle of watching Twin Peaks with my wife for the first time, and it's quite the experience. And I'm pretty sure I had to watch Mulholland Drive 4 times before I'm like, okay, I think I'm starting to like feel something going on here. And there's other films like Blue Velvet was one that impacted me immediately. And that's such an intense and engaging film. But those are two very special filmmakers for sure. Now, thinking about in front of the camera, do you have any particular favorite actors or actresses?
Okay, this time I'm going to get it right. Living or dead.
That does not matter. So, whichever works for you.
My favorite actor is Cary Grant.
Okay.
I just think, besides being this iconic Hollywood star, which I feel like people
Mm,
always say we don't have actual stars anymore, which I don't really understand what that means, but he was just this iconic star, but he also was different in so many of his movies.
mm,
I feel like a lot of the actors people compare him to that were active around that time are pretty much playing themselves in every movie, but he could be the villain. He could be this charming narcissist who you don't want to like, but you kind of do. He can be
mm.
like this goofy, awkward guy. It's just, I feel like there's versatility there, and he didn't really do the whole like makeup thing because I guess that wasn't as popular back then. So you know how like when an actor undergoes some sort of physical transformation and everyone's like, "Oh my God, he's so good."
Yep.
He looks the same in every movie, but he has the versatility and I just really enjoyed that.
Well, and I feel like most people just write off Cary Grant as like him in North by Northwest, where he's just a charming, classy, dress in a suit kind of guy. But then you watch films like Arsenic and Old Lace, where he's just going completely unhinged, and he had such a great sense of humor and comedic timing with films like that, or like bringing up Baby, where he's like a nerd. Like this guy's an archaeologist, and just his whole entire dynamic, just dealing with being completely out of his element to the point where it's just like other actors mimicked that kind of performance. And like I remember watching What's Up Doc for the first time and being like, Ryan O'Neal's basically like this movie kind of feels like bringing up Baby in a lot of ways. And Ryan O'Neal's channeling that like, oh my God, he threw on a pair of glasses and he's acting like a nerd. And Cary Grant had that. And I think that's really special. But like obviously he could do that extreme fast talking, like his girl Friday and everything. It's just so sharp and so zippy. So yes, he had multitudes, he had layers and dimensions, and he was a fantastic actor for sure. Now, Lexi, do you have a particular film that you feel like you could just watch every day?
I feel like there's no movie I would actually want to watch every single day, but
Fair.
I had to. Like, this was
Hmm.
mandatory. Assuming there are no specific rules, I would want to watch something that's a short film that's perfect for starting the day so I could just build it into my daily routine. And Satoshi Kon had a 1 minute short film called Good Morning, and it's just this
Nice.
person getting ready to start their day and waking up. So I was like, okay, you know what? If I had to watch a film every single day, probably just do that while I'm waking up every day.
That is the most unique answer that I've gotten to this question, and it's very much appreciated. So, and that sounds like the perfect kind of movie that you would want to watch every morning to get your day ready. And you can't go wrong with a Satoshi Kon film. So it's hard arguing with that. But I appreciate bonus points for creativity with your answer to that question. I'm also not the kind like I don't rewatch movies very often because there's so many new movies to watch that it's hard to like. But like I know some people that, aren't children because like obviously children watch the same thing over and over and over again. And definitely some of my friends are in that point in their lives where there are new parents and will probably watch something like Frozen 50 times in like a week and stuff like that. My buddy Mike apparently has watched K-pop Demon Hunter like an insane amount of times because his daughters want to keep watching it. But outside of that, like I don't watch the same thing over and over again. But that was a very clever answer and I appreciate it. Now, this is one of my favorite questions because, it kind of connects things outside of film potentially. But what's a film that you connect with closely because it relates to another interest of yours?
Okay, so my immediate thought is, oh, do I have other interests? But
Sometimes that is the reaction to this question, to be fair.
I'm gonna say I feel like this is a cop out, but I'm gonna say Umberto D because it's one of my favorite films of all time, and because
Mhm.
one of my other interests is my dog, and the
Aw,
movie has a dog, and we watched it for the first time together, and he seemed to like it.
which, I have to say, anytime a movie has a cat in it, that certainly hits a special place for me too. I love my cats and also hate them, because they're cats and cats can be that way. They're lucky they're so adorable, but who doesn't love a good dog movie? And I know the discourse right now certainly is just around Good Boy, floating around, and nothing better happened to that dog.
I mean, I could tell you the answer. I saw the movie.
Well, we'll keep that in suspense for sure. But I could appreciate that for sure. We do love our pets. Now, who's a movie character you feel like you connect with on a personal level?
This is going to sound like a joke, but I'm 100% serious when I say it. The character Clara in Tu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar.
Okay.
Because she's the little old lady who, when she's first introduced, we're told she's mute, she doesn't speak, and then she's sitting down and a character sitting next to her and talking, and then the other character starts talking about movies. And you can kind of see her head like pick up a little bit. I'm like, okay, that is me. I'm in a room with people. I don't know what to say. I am completely silent. They start talking about movies. Suddenly my ears perk up. I'm interested, but I will not jump into their conversation because I'm like, they didn't ask me to. I don't know what I'm doing. But then the person talking to her is trying to remember the name of a movie and she immediately answers. I'm like, that's me because I will be interested when I hear people talk about movies, but I will not chime in unless someone specifically asks me a question
Mm,
or is trying to remember the name of something, like an actor or a movie, and I know the answer, because then I'm like, okay, well, now I'm being helpful. It's not necessarily just interrupting their conversation.
mm.
So seeing a character who doesn't speak until someone is talking about movies, very much relatable for me.
I actually had one of those moments at a press screening like 2 weeks ago where like somebody, some other critics are having their own conversation and they just were not like recalling a specific movie and I just like blurted it out. I'm like, I'm not even in their conversation, but I'm like, I was sitting there, I'm like, I can't help myself. But no, to be honest, as somebody who I love people, but people take a lot out of me. And I don't like big situations with a lot of people, especially strangers. And but the thing is, like, somebody's talking about movies, it's like a radar goes off. It's like start picking that up. So it's also very relatable. So I could appreciate that for sure. Now, Lexi, what's a film that you love that you feel like would surprise people?
I think that depends on the other person because it depends how well they know me. I
Hmm.
feel like I've met people who, as soon as they find out I'm into movies, they're like, "Oh, have you heard of Christopher Nolan?" And then the conversation from there, whatever movies I name, they are surprised by because I guess they're expecting, I don't know why they would ask if I know who he is. That hasn't happened recently. I hope it never happens again since Oppenheimer did so well at the Oscars.
Yep.
But usually those types of people are surprised when I mention movies that are older than I am, which I don't know
Mm.
if that's surprising, but to those people it is. And then I think if people look at my four favorites, they'd be surprised to learn that I'm a fan of movies like Josie and the Pussycats or Basic Instinct, because I don't think my four favorites really give off that vibe. But the people who know me really well, I don't think are really surprised by any movie that I love.
Well, you bring up a couple interesting points, and I've noticed there's been a resurgence of love for Josie and the Pussycats recently, and it's just like it only took what 25 years or so for this movie to start actually getting some appreciation. Because like I remember when that came out, that certainly did not get that kind of attention when it came out. And it is also a interesting moment, and especially like if you're talking to people older than you and mention like you love these movies for like when they were alive but you're not, and then they get all surprised, and like I'm sure most people would not expect somebody around our age to be like, my favorite movie is a Chaplin film. Just like, what? I working at a college is a very interesting experience, and interacting with 18, 19, and 20-year olds all the time. And I distinctly remember having a conversation with a student worker of mine who's like, "Hey, have you ever heard of this really old film? It came out in 2002." And I'm like, I was 11 in 2002. That is not really, really old. Now, in hindsight, it is 23 years old at this point, and that is very old for some people. But film's been around for over 125 years. There's really old stuff, as in like I've watched movies from like the 1900s and the 19 teens. That's really old to me. It's all about perspective, right? For
Yeah.
sure. But Lexi, my last question for you is this. What do you love most about movies?
Okay, I'm gonna try not to go on a rant for about an hour, but my favorite thing about movies is that it combines all the art forms into one, basically.
Hmm.
Like, I love art in general, but you can enjoy all these different art forms in just one thing by watching a movie because you've got writing, photography, makeup, hair, fashion, painting, drawing, sculpting, like any art form you can think of can be in a movie, and they all come together to create this different medium. And I just love that. But also, I feel like I learn so much from movies, which probably sounds bad. Like, imagine someone who only learns about things from movies. That's probably not a good thing. But what I mean is, if there are topics that don't interest me, but I've seen a movie about them, I can kind of participate in a conversation. Like, this is a bad example, but if someone wants to talk about baseball, I don't like
Mm,
baseball. But if I've seen movies about baseball, I can kind of contribute in that way.
mhm.
And movies from different countries and different time periods, I feel like I can learn a lot about what that was like. Like, whenever I say that, I think people think if I say I can learn a lot about a different time period by watching a movie, they think like, oh, a more recent movie, but it's set in the 70s. So I'm learning about the 70s. And it's like, no, what I mean is if I watch a movie that was made in the 70s, but is set in the 1930s, the way they depict the 30s in this movie that's made in the 70s says a lot about the 70s.
Yeah.
So I feel like also, I just really like stories, and
Mhm.
I always want to hear people's stories, but people usually want to make small talk. So it's like my way of getting to absorb all these different stories and learn about people and the world.
And I think there are a lot of people out there that can learn a thing or two from watching movies. And it's a special experience and being like I'm not much of a traveler. I describe myself as a bit of a hobbit. I don't like venturing very far from my hobbit hole, but I've watched films from all around the world, and just being able to connect with a different culture in a different way is a special experience. And to your point too about film is all arts layered into each other. I was just having a conversation on my last episode with a musician who also loves film, and great music in a movie can build such a connection and leave such a lasting impression. And I'm sure most cinephiles have said like I could like take a frame from this movie and just throw it up on my wall and it's a piece of art. That's exactly it. Cinematography is a really special thing, and being able to experience that. So I you said that you potentially could talk on for an hour, but I think you packed in a lot in a nicely tight answer with that. But I also love stories. I'm definitely a storyteller. I'll catch myself just wanting to tell people a story. And I think that's something to appreciate about film too. But Lexi, thank you so much for humoring me and talking about movies with me. But I always like to wrap up my show by having my guests ask me a question. So, what would you like to ask the Wasteland Reviewer?
Okay, I'm torn because part of me wants to throw one of the questions you gave me back to you, but I don't know if people do that all the time, if I should pick a different question, because I feel
You
like
could do both if you really want to, or you could just ask one of those questions back if you really want to hear my answer.
okay, I want to do both.
Okay.
First, I want to know what your answer is to the movie that you'd watch every day, but in the scenario where you have to pick one, like you actually
Mhm.
have to watch it every day.
So it would 100% be Shrek. I'd wind up being Robert Neville from I Am Legend, watching Shrek every day of my life. And well, actually, I'm probably close to the point where I can recite the whole thing from start to finish. So, like, I don't rewatch things on like a daily basis, weekly basis, or like that, but I do have films that I go back to and watch every year. And for my birthday, I always take a day off from work and just sit at home and watch some of my favorite movies. And I do rotate Shrek and Shrek 2 every year. So I've watched a lot of Shrek. And yes, I am very excited for Shrek 5. They better not hurt me. I'd be very sad. But no, Shrek's my answer to that because tight 90 minutes. It's so much fun. It's so quotable. And I've loved Shrek ever since I saw that in theaters, you know, 24 years ago, letting that sink in. But what's your other question?
I feel like this might overlap now that I think about it, but it's not where you have to watch it every day. If you were going to a desert island and could only bring with you one movie, one book, and one album, which ones would you choose? Assuming that you actually have the ability to play those things, because anytime I do this to people, they're like, well, I can't watch it because I don't have the means. And I'm like, no, but you do in this.
They're missing the point of the the point of the prompt is not for you to have an argument over electricity and, I get your question. Um, I have a bit of a cheat for the first one, but like if I had to like narrow it down to one specific movie, it'd probably be Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. My cheat would be I would just bring my box set of the three of them and bring it with me. Because I love Lord of the Rings. They've been my favorite movies since I saw them all in theaters, and I had such varying degrees of experiences watching them in the theater. But I just feel like they're the type of film that has everything. It has a little bit of everything and accomplishes all of those things in such an amazing way. And fantasy's like, I would argue fantasy is the hardest genre of movies to make work. Because like you literally have to create a whole new world and get people to buy into that first. Love that. From a book perspective, this might sound not like a good idea to have this with me on a desert island and just perseverating on this forever on an island. My favorite book's 1984. So like that might not be good for my mental health to be reading that over and over again, but it is still my favorite book. And there's something so interesting and dynamic about its exploration of authoritarianism and fascism and stuff like that. An album, I am a huge Rush fan, and I would probably have to bring their Clockwork Angels album, which is like a sci-fi concept album. It was their last one and will be their last one, sadly. But it tells a great story, and there's at least five, six songs from that album that I absolutely love. So yeah, those would probably be my answers. Um, I'd probably be start to worry about myself after like the 10th time reading through 1984 on this desert island, but outside of that, still my favorite. But Lexi, thank you so much for your question. That was a fun one for sure. But I do appreciate you coming on, and thank you so much for coming on and chatting movies with me.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. And thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.